Hi, this is your host, Laura Powers, and I'm so pleased today to have Julie Reisler on the show. She is a podcast host, she's an intuitive coach, an author. Her book and podcast are about becoming your USU, which I love. Such a great title and important topic. So thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I feel like we're definitely kindred spirits, and I love everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I'm so excited to be here and just to be with you and have a conversation and connect. You're awesome.
Oh, thank you. Well, the feeling is mutual. I've downloaded your book. I think it's great, and I love your podcast topic. But for those who aren't familiar with your work, can you share a little bit about it and then how you got to here today?
Yeah, if it's okay, maybe I'll do the quick, like how I got here and then how
Sure.
that got me, because I feel like
Yeah.
I'll be quick with my story. Yeah, it's interesting. I think you and I were talking about this another time about this, the gifts that we often don't know that we have. I did not realize growing up that I was definitely an empath, and highly
Mm,
sensitive and felt energy. I have a father who suffered from PTSD. He's a Vietnam veteran, and I picked up a lot of his very sad, depressed energy. He was very
mm,
loving towards me, but I could read his energy, and I didn't know that. And so um, a lot of I think what I did to compensate for that was, because I felt so much, it was very overwhelming for me. And so I turned to food, um,
mm.
food addiction. Because when and I didn't learn this till later, many times empaths struggle with addiction because,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and I didn't know this. So I struggled a lot because I could not handle those feelings. I felt like my doing well in life was really keeping him alive, which he later shared, kind of confirmed, and he's doing a lot better today. But it was really a lot to sense that very early on. And so I think what happened was, food tastes good. It just blocked those sensitivities. But then I was left with, this whole blown addiction, and self-loathing. And then of course what comes with that is, hatred of body image issues, and just really struggled with feeling not good enough, and trying to hide it. Like it was, it's not, I always say it's a little sexier to be found with like a six pack. It's not so sexy to be found with like 15 Twinkies and a bag of M&Ms and like hiding them in the bathroom. Like that is not really so cool. So I had a lot of shame because I would eat a
Mm,
lot, in hiding and secret. I was a secret eater and binged. And so, what happened was eventually, I had got married very young. I had a lot of intuitive knowings and I did not listen. And that's okay because I have two kids and it's worked out. But had a real, I had an awakening first about my food addiction, that it was like I had to get help. And I remember this because I was driving to a meeting. I'd heard about a support group and I was eating M&Ms. I couldn't stop eating them. And I had this moment of, it still chokes me up, but like, should I just drive into a tree? Like, I don't want to live like
oh,
this anymore. It was that bad,
yeah.
you know? So long story short, something said, I heard a voice say, Julie, go to the meeting, your life will change. And that really was the beginning. I started to excavate my authentic self. And then, that led to waking up in the middle of the night and hearing, Julie, you're not okay in this marriage, with two kids under the age of 2. So lots of shifting. And I think, the more I started to trust this inner wisdom and knowing and voice, the more, it's not always easy, but I started to feel more and more connected to my higher self, what I call being your USU, that divinity, that divine essence. And eventually I had a night that it was a night in May like this, and it was beautiful out. I remember coming out of a meeting with a friend and I was like, wow, I actually feel at peace. It's the first time in most of my life. And I said, I feel like over these last 10 years, this was about 10 years ago, I said, I feel like I've just gotten a PhD in myself. I feel like we should go to school to learn how to love and honor ourselves. And that name stuck with me. So when I ended up writing that book, I was like, oh, I got to teach this because I grew up in, intellectual city by Harvard. I mean,
Mm,
everyone's into like how smart you are, your IQ. And I was smart because I worked really hard, but honestly, my intelligence is not really in the logic department. It's more in that emotions and frankly, probably more in the intuitive realm. And
yeah.
took a long time, Laura, to really to own that, to not feel embarrassed or ashamed or weird, or like, I didn't get a certification, so how can I say I'm an intuitive? And
It's that whole world. Yeah. It's a totally different process.
yeah. So, today I everything I teach and speak about and coach and do, I mean, I'm doing every day with myself, and it's, my whole life has done a U-turn over these last 10 years. I mean, all I can say is, even in pictures, to me, in pictures energetically, I looked older in my
Mm-hmm.
20s. I looked older in my 20s and early 30s when I was feeling so trapped. So, I think, look, energy is real, and being connected to your heart's purpose. And I just believe in this work so much. It's freeing.
Oh, absolutely. There's so much, I think you said, that resonates. Empaths, what happens is our energy gets very heavy because we're taking on so much of other people's stuff. And then people search to something to boost themselves up. So some kind of coping mechanism. So whether that's food or, sex or alcohol or another, some kind of substance, shopping. I mean, it could be, it doesn't have to be a substance. It could be a behavior, but we're all, searching for something until we learn how to shift our energy and
Yes.
not take on other people's burdens. So yeah, a lot of empaths really do struggle with varying kinds of addictions and coping mechanisms. I was the same. For me, it was like sugar, caffeine, and then later alcohol. Not that I was like an alcoholic, but I definitely drank a lot, after
Yes.
my divorce in particular. Um, so I think that's important. And then, your body is holding on to that energy. So I have the same thing, like where after I got my divorce, I kind of, it's like almost like I aged backwards. Like people thought I was younger than I was before,
Yeah.
like later, because I think I shifted my energy, and it shows up. It does show up in
Yeah.
pictures, in your skin, in your energy field. And people are drawn to you when you are in a good place.
It's, I'm in my 40s now, and I've been saying, like, it just gets better and better. And the truth is, I don't even say anti-aging anymore. I'm like, that's the wrong wording, right? Because
Yeah.
anti anything. So I'm like, aging with grace and light. And I have this whole thing I do in the mirror, and I'm like, it doesn't really matter to me, but there's still some vanity. But it is neat to see pictures. I've had people say to me, like, I don't even fully recognize you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, part of it was I used to straighten my hair and wear pearls. I mean, I was like wearing a costume that was not me.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
No, I hear you. And I feel the same way about the age. I'm about to turn 42, and I just feel great. Like I feel like it does get better and better. So we need to just throw out those ideas about what
Yeah.
certain numbers or, age means in terms of your life, or in how you look and how you feel.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad you brought up that sort of costume idea, because I feel the same thing. Like, even though I didn't grow up where you did, I have family that's from New Bedford, Massachusetts. Like my grandparents grew up there. So yeah, I definitely feel like there's a part of that culture that was in my family as a result of that. And also very academic culture. Both my grandparents were university professors.
Oh gosh.
So, it's, again, very intellectual, very analytically oriented,
Yeah.
totally the opposite of being a psychic and
Yes.
intuitive.
Yes. And nothing wrong with it. It just, it
No,
wasn't
no.
my gift is not
Yeah.
in that arena. And I just remember there was like a psych class in high school, like a random, it was on like emotions and psychology and feeling. And I just remember I did the like elective, and I will never forget this. It was the first time it came so easily to me, because most of school didn't. I just worked really, really hard. And again,
Yeah.
wanting to make sure my dad felt it, it was a lot of like, I want to make sure he's doing okay. Let me succeed, because
Right.
that's keeping him alive is what it felt like. But I remember taking that elective, and I was like, oh my gosh, whatever this is, like, this is my language, like finally. And I didn't want to be a psychologist. It was interesting. But
You
I
wanted to
spent,
study, yeah, you wanted to study people and how they operate. That totally makes sense to me.
yeah,
And my undergrad's in theater, but I almost did psychology. So I
so
kind
great.
of like, I'm fascinated, and I kind of coming at it from a different perspective. With theater, you went in acting, you end up kind of like working on it yourself and
Yes.
analyzing it in that way. And then now as a psychic, I'm definitely, I would say it's a similar world, even though the approaches are obviously very different.
Yeah. So cool. So cool.
Well, I love everything that you do. And I think, the sort of being the U.S. you is so important now more than ever. And I feel like part of what's happening with coronavirus and these kind of big spiritual societal shifts is we're really being asked to strip away that which is not aligned with our highest self.
Yeah.
And that could be a career path, a job or relationship, a way of thinking, operating. And I just think these massive shifts are happening for us individually as well as collectively. But I think it's such a challenging thing sometimes to honor our true self. So how do you recommend for people to, first of all, find out what that is if they feel like they don't even know? Because we're so used to being head-based and kind of what society tells you. I think some people don't even know how to figure that out. And then also then how do you start to follow that when it feels like it's against, what society teaches us?
It's such a great question. Number one, I mean, it's actually a lot of what I wrote about in the first book with Get a PhD in You, because the whole point is to move past stories, to really tap into your heart intelligence, your heart wisdom. What I think of as, I think of it as we came here with these sacred contracts to really, to come forth and shine our gifts and to use them because there's a reason, right? Service in all the ways, individuated ways. The first thing I know that it helped me immensely was learning to get still and to be able to pause. And I am guessing you're like this, and anyone listening, because it's just this how we attract each other. I mean, I tend to be an overachiever type, like a doer. And that can be exhausting. And that means if you're always doing, I had to learn how to sit still and how to tune in. So important to even kind of get in tune with, okay, what's going on within, like in my heart and what is my higher self wanting me to know? Getting still. I also think having a team of support. I do not do this stuff alone. I do not do life alone. I have people that are really there to support me, that have got my back. And even if they see it differently, figure out those people that are high vibrational and that, have your best in mind and best for you. And that's important because once you start to get a sense, oh, I really want to do this, oftentimes, or you get an intuition, about a relationship or a new career avenue, a lot of people, they fear change and they, without meaning to, are going to just throw water all over your idea. And you gotta be mindful. I always, I say it's similar to, we had talked about this earlier, but if you are, like the whole planting seeds idea, when you plant something, you do not want to pick them up too soon. But the other thing is you got to really baby them. So for me, I think of it as the idea of just, or like if you had an egg that, in, I don't know, 5th grade, you had to make sure the egg didn't get cracked. You've got to hold that idea with a lot of love and tenderness and nurture it. And I, share it. I'm a sharer, so I tend to want to share everything, but, share it with people that really can support you and that are not going to, inadvertently put it down, because you need that support.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit this about on your show. Definitely recommend checking out the USU podcast where we talked about this. But, when you're trying to create something in your life, it's so important that you, like you said, are around people that support you. And the analogy I give is don't be like a crab, or be around people that are like crabs. So crabs, put them in a bucket. One starts to get out, the other crab will pull the crab back in. Instead of like, hey, that crab's getting out, maybe that crab could help me out. It's like, we're all in this crappy place together. Don't try to get out of it. So if you are surrounded by people that are acting like that in your life, where they're like, you can't leave this, crap hole or whatever. Let those people go. They are not your friends. And find people that are supporting you and believe more in the rising tide lifts all ships mentality. And I really feel that's so key when I look back on some, situations I was in the past. And I think, gosh, no wonder I struggled so much. Like everyone energetically was operating that way of not believing that good things were possible, not wanting me to, because then that felt badly about themselves. Or maybe, I think what happens for a lot of people is when someone else does something that they don't think is possible, it makes them kind of start to question their beliefs. And that makes them really uncomfortable, because a lot of people really want to be in that kind of victim, things suck kind of mentality. And that's super toxic. So definitely let those people go. You can send them love and light and be like, that's your path and your journey. It doesn't have to be my journey. And I do think it happens in phases. Like, I feel like as I've shifted, the people I've connected have shifted, and it's really beautiful. So if you're struggling with like, how do I find those people? Because I remember being in that place where I'm like, I'm shifting and like, where are those cool people that are
Right.
trying to
Where are they?
connect with? Yeah.
Where are they? Something that's, I think, to add really quickly that's helped me is
Sure.
two things I would say is doing a lot of, call it whatever you want to call it, intuitive journaling, where you start to tune into, you might, sit still, meditate, and ask your heart, ask yourself, what is it that my heart desires? What really lights me up? What is it that, that I would love to have more of in my life? And usually it's that quality of, joy or fun or connection or whatever it is, and to journal. And then another piece is to track when things happen.
Oh my gosh, I was just literally thinking that. That is so powerful.
Yes, I do it on a mind map. So it's actually over
Mm.
here. It's this huge poster board. It's unbelievable to look at things that you have, that have come to fruition, and then link them and see them and track it. You can also, I'm not very linear, so it's hard for me to do anything in a list, but however works for you, track that
Right.
stuff, because it's like, it builds that faith muscle. For me, I've always needed that. It's helped me to be like, oh yeah, this stuff works. This works. We're guided.
Yeah.
There is like, trust my desires.
Yeah, I think this is important, and it's important to take notice of patterns. So whether you're just kind of mentally taking note, writing it down,
Yeah.
kind of doing a daily recap. Like for me, I would notice, for example, we talked about an empath, looking for coping mechanisms or
Yeah.
addictions or whatever. So when is it that you feel the strongest urge to reach for that, chocolate, alcohol, shopping, whatever it is your thing? Because I found when I was starting to really pay attention that I was like, oh my gosh, after I had that conversation with that one person, or after I was at that job, or, whatever,
Yeah.
that's when I would need that coping mechanism. And if you shift those things, you don't
Yeah.
need it. Like, so I used to be a total coffeeaholic, and I couldn't like function with
Mm,
any capacity without like several cups of coffee in the morning.
mm,
And you may like coffee, and that's fine. I've realized that it's really not aligned with me. I literally start to get kind of burned out adrenals and things when I have
yeah.
too much coffee. But the fascinating thing was when I stopped having the office job that was draining me, I didn't even feel like I needed coffee. Like
Yes.
it was like, oh, it's not even that I really need coffee. It's that I'm so drained and exhausted from this environment and situation that I'm in. And then I remove that and I'm like, oh, I don't need to be perked up anymore. I feel awake. I'm rested.
Right.
Really making those connections, I think, is so important, because it completely changed, what you feel like you need. And
Right.
you may not, the other thing was, there were certain people, like, even after I'd given up coffee, if I felt like I needed a coffee, and this was like, say, a year or two after I'd given up coffee, it was because I was around someone or a situation that was draining me.
Yeah.
I'd have this
I
sudden craving way after it was out of my system.
I think, wow, I just, this is so important, because I think listening to our body and that wisdom and the energy, when I was, I struggled a lot, when I was in my marriage, and then of course getting separated, divorced, there was a lot of stress with that. And I ended up, my thyroid stopped working, and
Oh,
I had a whole breakdown in my health. And one of the things, it was interesting. One of the things I realized is that, my voice, I did not feel like I had a voice in my former marriage, which, I mean, I created that, but it felt very much like no voice. And that, is connected to that throat chakra area.
absolutely. Yeah,
Just,
I feel like generally the thyroid issues almost are always about finding your voice and using your voice.
and so what's healing has been healing. It's so funny, now with the podcast or being on yours, the more that I speak my truth, it's more important to me to be genuine, authentic, and truthful than, that's not always comfortable. So, but I'd rather be in that camp and have like energetically be aligned than where I was before, which, it took years to get myself, energetically realigned. It really did. I had to change my whole way of eating, kind of what you said with the coffee, like,
Yeah.
my body's sensitive. I did not realize, who knows if it was all the sugar, who knows, but, it's important to me to be able to be in alignment with who I'm here to be on this go around. And so, I think when we tune in, it kind of was a little daunting, because I also was like, oh crap, no coffee. That's a bummer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially when you're used to something and you're addicted to it, it's like really
Yeah.
hard to
Oh, yeah.
envision letting go. So I totally get it. This was not an easy thing for me to stop. I mean, I was a barista, for Pete's sake. Like, I was like totally in coffee.
Wow, that's really hard. Yeah, so hard.
So you said something that I just want to highlight, because I think it's really important, which is about using your throat chakra and saying things, making people uncomfortable and feeling uncomfortable speaking your truth. And I feel like when we're uncomfortable speaking our truth, especially as empaths, it's almost always because we're taking on someone else's energy, and it's their reaction to what we're saying that feels uncomfortable to us. And when we can learn to separate, okay, that's not my response, that's their response, and I don't have to feel their uncomfortableness, that's a game changer. So rather than like, oh, I need to minimize myself and be quiet to make them comfortable, it's like, oh no, I need to release my taking on of their pain, struggle, reaction so that I can feel good. So it's like both responses are about trying to feel better, but in one case it's an unhealthy situation for us, like by limiting ourselves, that's unhealthy, when instead we can just be like, oh, not mine, here's your uncomfortableness back that I'm sending your way, and it's much better in the long term.
So much better. And I think you had asked, I realized I didn't even answer this, but a lot of times the trigger to overeat is when I'm around somebody and if I'm not fully kind of keeping my own space, because you get it. I can feel it. What I can do is almost, it feels like I go into them, like I can go into their energy field and it's like I'm experiencing it, or I'm so with them and I want them, it can be very, I can lose a boundary of myself that can make me feel like I want to eat. Or if I'm around people that have energy that's frenetic or bully-esque, or energy that is not grounded or not as kind-hearted, which usually it just stems from fear, from ego, but that can be a trigger for me, and I have to be very, very mindful. There are a few people left in my life, not many, but I even around my children, who I adore, love, they're 12 and 13, and that energy can feel overwhelming sometimes.
Right.
Like,
they're going through a lot.
and I'm like, I'm trying to be there for them. And then I'm like, take it on, Julie. And, I have a mom my mother is very anxious. She's a lot of frenetic anxiety. And so it's just occurred to me, this has actually just occurred to me, like literally within 24 hours. She's a brilliant musician, former opera singer, very good musically. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start having her sing and go to the piano when we talk right now, because her anxiety with the pandemic is through the roof. It is.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah.
I think this is really important to note, because whether you identify as an empath or not, just know that you are picking up on things from other people. Like, we're not energy silos, like we're all connected, like, different cells in a body or something. And I have realized how crazy it is, the things that I'll pick up on as an empath. So beliefs, obviously emotions. And I'll give a couple examples. I was in the UPS store the other day because I did do a return, and I got so angry over something so dumb. And I was like, and I was like, oh my God, these people in here are so frustrated. And I just, because it was like, this is not a big deal. Why am I getting like, literally, I was like feeling so livid. And I just had to just be like, okay, I need to release this, whatever this is, because it's definitely not mine. But it would have been very easy to just fully manifest in that, like, and just kind of explode at someone or something. And so I think it's just really important to just check in when we're feeling emotion, like, wait, is this mine? Maybe I just need to release this instead. And then I had one crazy situation with a client. So I'm generally like a person where, okay, I like to be in a relationship if I'm with someone who's aligned and it's good and healthy and it feels nice. But I'm also very happy to be single. Like, I love my life, enjoy it, and I was actually in Washington, D.C., and I was at this hotel, and I was teaching a workshop the next day and had some clients, and it was the weirdest thing. Like, every man I saw, it was like, maybe he would be with me. Like, that was literally how I was feeling. It was like, maybe that guy. And it was weird because it'd be like, someone who's in like mid 60s and overweight and not attractive. And I would still be in this having weird thoughts. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is definitely not mine. And the next day I had a client who was a woman that was her mental space. Like, she was just like desperately looking for any partner. And I was like, oh my God, because I was connecting with her the next day, I was just already picking up on that energy from her. So I just really want to just share how striking and like strong it could be, and also how dysfunctional, because you can end up tapping into something, like you said, your mom's anxiety or something, and really operating from that place, and then making choices and decisions based on that.
Yeah.
That just means like, oh, I just need to release this.
Yeah, that is fascinating what happened. I love the correlation you had. And I think we don't realize, obviously we're made of energy. And I think we're way more in each other's fields. I mean, I know that, but we can't see it with our eyes. Most of us can't. So we forget. And I've thankfully learned this. But anyone who's sensitive, or just to remember, like, we're really affected by others' fields. And it's something I have in some ways learned the hard way. In other ways, the contrary, when I find someone like talking to you who I just love and vibe with, it's like, all right, give them more of that. Like, that feels awesome, right? And it's like it's generative and nourishing. And so it's what I found is when you tune in, our bodies, they don't lie. They're so
Yeah.
wise. Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I'm not judging anyone who's going through those things. It's more just a person's energy is most effective in their field because they're learning the lessons.
Yeah.
And if we're holding on to something that's not ours, it can never be healed or fixed in our energy field either. So it's just like, it's like a lose-lose because that person's energy is there to help them with their patterns, and our energy is helps with our patterns. So it's just best to shift and release. And I also feel like your book and your work is so important because the more we're focused on our true self, our highest self, our purpose, as an empath, the less we get kind of pulled in
Yes.
to other people's stuff. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I feel like there's a huge connection between those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the reasons I feel so passionate about this, number one, because I've felt a breakthrough, like a new freedom in my own life, having gotten out of this kind of shackled space of feeling I had to be what everyone else wanted. I was like queen of people pleasing. So, and being who others wanted me to be versus really tuning in to what's authentic for me. My belief is that, we've all chosen to come here, and we've embodied with really powerful sacred gifts, like individuated, unique. I'm always curious, like, I kind of go around thinking, like, what's your gift? Like, I want to know your gift.
Yeah.
And I want to first of all know my gift and then express it. And I've just seen it and felt it with myself, with clients. When you start to connect with your gifts, with your desires, with your, what you came here to be and do and experience, there's a shifting in energy, there's an alignment, there's a flow, a joy, all of that. But I also believe the world, the universe, Mother Earth is equally benefiting from me being in alignment with that. And so I really feel like, when the more of us that does this, that can make a huge shift in the consciousness, in what I would call the love quotient, in the ability to connect, like as a oneness, aspect. I think a lot of healing happens when, the more you can be aligned with your USU, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, your gifts, your sacred contract, the more that you are showing and inspiring others to do the same. And that you just, I don't know, when I'm in that space of kind of tuning in, the last thing I would want to do is put anybody down. The kind of like you were saying, the opposite of the crab effect. It's like we
Yeah.
more inspired to uplift one another, and that's the whole, rising tides happens. And I feel like there will be a tipping point when there's enough kind of higher consciousness, people living in their alignment of who they are meant to be and want to be. Eventually, my feeling is, and I don't think it's right now, but hopefully in our lifetime, I'd love to be part of it, where there is a tipping point and there is a shift energetically. And I mean, that's kind of what I'm here to help with, or to be part of, or to help be of service around, because it's a whole different ballgame. There won't be the suffering that we have now. It'll be much lessened.
Yeah, I'm so with you. And I think that so much of this is like, it's not actually going to take the majority. It just takes a certain number
Yeah.
of people that are operating in this new principle to make this shift. So it's like the 100-month monkey thing, idea. I don't know if you've heard of that, where like, there's this thing where they realize that a certain number of monkeys learn to use a tool or whatever, even if they didn't directly show another monkey, those other monkeys would figure it out somehow. It's like there's this collective thing that we tap into. And I think we're going through this shift right now. And I think there's a Schumann resonance, if you follow that, like our energetic shift, our vibration is literally rising. And when that happens, things that aren't aligned with that are uncomfortable. And that's where you're seeing a lot of like things, upheaval, things being torn down. And I think there's a lot of high level souls that are incarnated here right now to help us make this shift. And by the way, I think a lot of people that are listening to this are a part of this process, helping us as a society make a shift. And it's hard to be in this position. So I just want to just
Yeah.
give a shout out of compassion to anyone who it feels like it is feel like fighting the tide sometimes, or like you're in like an earth full of crabs and you're trying to be like, no, we don't have to operate this way. Like, it's from a principle perspective, the crabs are operating from the zero sum game. There's only a limited amount, and if you get it, I can't get it, and that's just how it is. And that's not the way the world works. It's like there's enough for all of us. And so just getting to say that it's not easy to make the shift, but eventually, your work will be rewarded, and
Totally.
and it is a much better place to operate out of anyway. So it's just a matter of finding your peers, and I think educating in a way that is modeling instead of like training, because a lot of empaths will try to heal or shift the other person instead of like, no, we're here to model.
Yeah. That does not work, by the way.
It doesn't work. Exactly.
No, it does
That's
not.
when you get pulled into, that person's path and karma. And so I think everything that you're talking about is really important. So for people where they just have a really hard time, let's say what they really want to do, they feel like it's not possible. Maybe their family doesn't support them.
Yeah.
They don't know how to start. Like,
yeah.
What do you do?
That's such a good question. Yeah. First of all, I think it's helpful to do a little bit of an inventory. What I mean by that is I would look in your past, especially when you were little, what brought you a lot of joy, start to see some of those patterns. This is talked a lot about in manifesting. The idea of what we really want is often the feeling that we get from that thing. So, I love feeling creative. I love playfulness. Like I love feeling the way I did when I was 8 with my stickers, whatever, whatever it was. I don't know if you like stickers. Listening.
I love stickers. I had a little book of stickers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Me too. Lisa Franks with like ponies and unicorns and rainbows. And there's something to look with that, because we often get to a point where we're like, oh, that doesn't make sense. That's not logical. I don't have time. Well, there's, actually it's interesting. I don't know how similar our story is, but I got back into acting, commercial modeling, all of that world.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, I did after my divorce.
I did that prior to the divorce, but it helped instigate kind of coming, excavating me. And I had done that growing up. My mom was a musician, music teacher. I did a lot of theater, a lot of on camera work. And when I was uncovering kind of who I am in that recovery journey, I remember I was like, well, I didn't go to Hollywood, so why I shouldn't be doing this. And then it was like, no, I just enjoy expression, self-expression like that. I love just, acting or being in a camera or, making someone happy in that way. I realized it was a joy. It was a love, and I could care less where it led. And what's amazing is when I was able to do that. So a place to start might be making a list of what did you love when you were little. When I did that list, I said, oh my gosh, I loved that work. I loved when I was, acting or being on stage like that and just bringing joy. And that led to one of my biggest commercial modeling jobs with Canyon Ranch. I would never.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
I know. I didn't think, but so the point is you don't know, but you to go back, pull and harvest what you've loved, and then look at what's brought you joy recently. And I would map it out and start to look at where do they intersect. It doesn't mean it took me a couple of years to start my own business. I was at a full-time job for 11 years. I'm not saying go leave your job tomorrow if you want to start something, but maybe it's a side gig, right? Or, maybe there's an essence of you really miss being outside. You could get into gardening or, it doesn't matter. I really think our body, our inner, our energy is looking for that feeling. And so when you just start any way that you can, it changes energy. And I think we all have those places that really light us up, and to find ways to ask yourself, how can I add that now? Even in a smaller aspect, what would that look like? What would that feel like?
Yeah. I think that's so important. I do feel like when we're kids, we really are so kind of in tune with that. And then we kind of learn it out of ourselves from family, society, peers, etc. I certainly had that. I went back to my creative roots, went through this kind of political science, government, and then I was like, oh wait, I need to go back to creativity, and I channel a lot. So it's definitely tied in with my psychic ability. The other piece you brought up, which I think I really want to stress, is that you can do and be many things. I feel like society teaches you could just be one thing. Like
Yeah.
you should be a doctor, or you should be a writer, or whatever that is. And I think that's frankly BS. There's a book that helped me when I was struggling with that myself called Refuse to Choose. And it's about how, it's like, you don't have to choose. You can just be whatever the hell you want. Pardon my French,
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And a lot of times people are very gifted in multiple areas. And some people really do better when they focus on one thing. And if you're that way, great, do that. If you're not that way, like I thrive when I do different things. Like I feel mentally stimulated and I feel like they feed together. And by the way, you look at the things I've done, like, so I did improv for years. My first paid job was in an improv troupe. I did acting, and then I got on, Will Ferrell's show. That's a comedy show where it was unscripted, talking about being a psychic. So like, all that experience really served me because I had to improv basically, but talking about my experience in life as a psychic. So the universe will send you opportunities that are like perfectly set up for your background if you honor those different parts of you.
I love that. I used to feel a little embarrassed, honestly. And it's funny, even sharing now, I'm like, here comes like more things. And it's like, I love Marie Forleo. And when I was very inspired by her, and she used to talk about being a multi-passionate entrepreneur or multi-passionate. Like, well, I'm definitely multi-passionate. I got a lot of like you, and I think it's a beautiful thing to express those. I have friends that are not like that, and that's cool too. I don't know. I was designed, I think a lot of us were designed with, for me, it's really that creativity spark. I love expression in many different ways that feel authentic. And I think that's always the key. If it feels aligned, then that's a cue. If it doesn't, no, that's a different cue.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it can be challenging because you might have resistance to doing something. Like I, for example, as a psychic, will frequently get for someone, I'm like, it's for you to write a book or to be a writer. And they're like, oh, I hate writing. I dread it. I don't like, and then I'm like, well, I'm definitely feeling like that's there. You have some past life patterns, resistance, and then it will happen. Like a year later, they write the book, it's a bestseller, blah, blah, blah. So I think anything that obviously makes you feel aligned and excited, like do that. And then if you feel like you're getting guided to do something and it just feels heavy, it's probably that you have other energy that you need to release, and just ask the angels to help you with clarity on that and to release it if that's the case. Well, oh my gosh, I feel like you and I could just like talk forever.
I know. I love it. There's so much. No, I love I love this whole show and what you're saying. And I'm hoping this is really impactful. I think, I really, it's a strong belief, the more we all tune into our higher guidance and higher self, that, there's a reason you have that desire. There's a reason I have the desires I have. And I like to think that maybe I can't see the other side, but there's a need for that. And so it's actually, it's being of disservice if you do not follow that voice, but get some support. And like you were saying, I mean, I have my guides that are not physical, and then the physical, and I use all of that because it's not always easy. Many people don't get it, and that's okay.
Yeah. Just be there and surround yourself by those who do get it. And, everyone is learning things at different phases. And a lot of people that aren't ready for the spiritual stuff, either they're not ready in that phase in their life, and maybe they will be at some point, or on a spiritual path, it's just not their time yet. So one of the things I've learned is like the sort of soul, spiritual development. So, you're not going to have a conversation with a 2-year-old about complex physics. Like they just aren't ready. They just can't developmentally handle it. And I feel like those of us who are drawn to spirituality, and that's because on a soul level, we are ready to handle that. And some people aren't, and that's okay. Being a child is not being worse than being an adult, and neither is the same thing on a spiritual level. We're all at different places on our spiritual journey. And it's just important for us to acknowledge where people are, not expect them to be able to handle something that they are not able to yet. And also just, not judge ourselves or others
Totally.
for where they are. Well, this has been so fun. I'd love to hear about anything else you'd like to share. I know you have the School of Sacredology, you have your podcast, like just please share whatever else you'd like to.
Oh my gosh, you're the best. No, I love this conversation, and recently, so it's interesting. I'll say this very quickly. I had this. My dad took a near fatal fall about a year ago, and I got one of the biggest signs of my entire life, and it really woke me up. I was flying back to see him in the Boston area, and on the plane, I just had this feeling, the word I'd seen in the airport, the word sacred. And I'm like, what is it about this word? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's interesting. Scared and sacred, the same lettering. And then I heard this word sacredology, and I was like, oh, I've heard it. I don't know it. What does it mean? I looked it up. I'm like, it doesn't mean anything. And so for a year, I kept taking notes on this. Like, what the heck is this? And why would I be helping people who feel scared? Like, when are they going to, anxiety. Okay. And a couple months ago, right as this pandemic started, what I woke up and I heard, and I was going to be doing this probably the summer, and I heard, Julie, your mission started now, and you must start this now. So I created the School of Sacredology really as a place to learn how to unlock your intuition, how to really get that you're sacred, all of life is sacred, and how to turn that fear to faith. And it's been wild, Laura. Like I do master classes, which I would love to have you in as one of the experts. And then we have a learning community, and there's such big hearted souls in there, and it's ongoing. You can come at any time. And it's really, for me, like, trying to create that Earth 3.0 with people that want to live from their heart and learn how to do it and trust it. And it's just wild. I did not know I was going to be doing that so soon, but I am. And I feel grateful. That's been really, really life-giving. And then starting my next book soon, which
yay.
hopefully you'll be part of. I'm excited. So
yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I think, we're in a time where it's more important than ever for us to consciously choose where we're putting our attention and energy. And I feel like you can't be in fear and faith at the same time, and you also can't be in fear and creativity at the same time. Yeah. Meaning, like, if you're being creative, it just automatically pulls you out of that fear, anxiety place.
Yeah.
And so this tapping into creativity, the intuition, the divine, again, it's like a different frequency. And so if you're stuck in that fear place, like, it's time to just focus on this other thing, and it's amazing how it just like shifts out. Well, Julie, you've been such a pleasure. I love everything that you're doing. I wish you the best on everything else. If people want to learn more, connect with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yes. So I would say first and foremost, my website, which is just my name, juliereisler.com. And I'm sure you'll have the spelling. It's REI, like the store is the best way to say it, because I don't think we pronounce it correctly in my household. But that's all right. Like you, I'm on Insight Timer. I have a lot of meditations on self-love and connecting to your higher self. And I have a course on there for recovering from overeating.
Oh, amazing. I love that platform. It's such a good platform. If you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's, it's free. There's wonderful teachers.
Amazing.
You can save things, come back to it, listen to any time. I found a lot of great meditations myself, and I love it as a user and to share my stuff. So yay.
I've heard you on there. No, it's a gift. It's a gift. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook. If you just look up Julie Reisler, you can find me. And please reach out. I love helping. I love supporting. I love people. So if there's something I can do to support anybody in their journey, I really, truly would love to hear from you. And so honored to be here. This was so much fun.
Oh, me too. And I have to give a shout out to Dr. Richard Schuster. He's the one.
Yes.
Thank you for
connecting. We love him. Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie. It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to connecting again.
Thank you so much. What a gift.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. If you'd like more information about me, you can go to my website, healingpowers.net. You can find me at Twitter at @LauraPowers, Instagram at LauraPowers44, and on Facebook at Healing Powers. Many blessings to all of you.